Now, some people have blamed AJ, for instance, but AJ only came into the scene over here when the business was already in the doldrums. So we've got to ask ourselves, why has this happened? If we look at the PV, same thing. The PV has been declining from 2.5 million to, well, it's starting to pick up a little bit again, but you can see it's lower, except here, 4 years ago, than it's ever been. That's for the year, that's not for the month. If we really built the business strongly, we could do 1 million or 2 million in a month. We won't get there quickly, but that's not impossible if we do it right. So we've got to ask ourselves, why is this? And then we could look at all blame, but we have to ask ourselves, why? What is my share in it? But because in your team, it might be the same. This is the bigger team, but if that's true in your team, you've got to say, why and what do I need to do that? Now, we must remember as leaders, and you're all directors, you have influence over what is happening in your team. And that influence can go in one of 3 directions. It's positive. You're having your team move up because of you. Or sometimes leaders' influence is negative. You know, where the team would be better off without the leader. And sometimes the influence is just zero. You know, the leader is absent. The leader is neither doing good nor doing bad, but certainly not pushing or not pushing, but pulling the team with them. So what needs to then happen in a negative zero situation is think of the blind leading the blind. Now, this is very valid. Where John Maxwell, he's the world's top leadership expert, says, show me a successful person and I'll show you somebody who is serious about personal development. Now, we all know of personal development. We talk of personal development. We think reading books and listening to things, that's all there is to it. But personal development means basically we have to change from where we are to where we can be or should be. Isn't that true? So your personal development up till now, as well as mine, reflects in our results. John Maxwell also says nothing gets better until the leader gets better. So what does that mean? If you want your team to do better, and if I say you, I include me in that as well. I'm not talking down at you. I'm talking with you, if that's something that's possible. We need to get better if we want to see better results in our teams. Whatever that may mean. It may mean a change in attitude, how we deal with people, what we do, how we think about ourselves, how we think about the company, how we think about the opportunity. There's so many aspects to it. And Warren Buffett says it in a different way. He says, life gets better if you behave better. You know, we've had instances in the business where bad behavior by leaders have done a lot of damage to the business. If those leaders could have behaved better or learned to behave better, it could bring a huge change. Now, those leaders are us. Forget about this one and that one. It's now about the 6 of us sitting here, not somebody else. Now, just to remind you of what Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So somebody who sincerely believes they can't, won't. Because if you think you can't, you're not even going to try, you're not going to put in the effort. And if the effort is not there, the result won't be there. Conversely, if you think you can, you know, there's energy, you're going to try, you make mistakes, so what? You correct the mistakes and you carry on. And that is what we need to be sure of, that we think very positively about ourselves, about our teams to come, and the growth that is possible. Because what I've seen for myself, when you're perhaps struggling or your business is under pressure, you start to think, oh, you know, this is it. We've got to think potential. I'll touch on that in a while. Because remember, Proverbs says how we think is how our lives are shaped. Our lives aren't in the first place shape our actions. Because behind our actions is our thinking. Just write Proverbs 4:23. You can look it up yourself. I'll be giving this to Justice. You can, you know, pick up the finer details later on. And when Paul writes to the Romans, he's trying to impress on them that Christians should be different. But he's not saying you're different by doing this or doing that. How do you change? By transforming your mind, your thinking. So the fact is, if we look at where we are or where we come from, that's behind us. That is not a reliable predictor of where we can be. So at this stage, none of us is where we could be. Now, to think because we are where we are means that's where that's the limit of where we could be. That would be putting ourselves down. As you guys in Uganda like to say, are you with me? So don't worry about what hasn't been. Don't worry about the hassles you've had and thinking that is going to be the level you can be. The next point to remember is when we're down, we stop thinking big. And that means we're going to stop moving up. We've got to keep aiming higher and higher all the time. A high jump athlete clears the bar. And what do they do? They don't say, well, that's my limit. They put the bar a bit higher. And they clear it and they say, well, that's not my limit. Let's put it a bit higher. Until in that instance, there is a limit. You can't go infinitely higher. In this example of a high jump athlete. But in our situation, there's no limit to where we can go. And that person excites me. You know that I'm a 5 ruby. That doesn't mean that's the limit for me. 5 diamond is what I aim for. Not immediately. Because how do I know I can't get there if I don't aim to be there? Because if I don't aim to be there, I definitely won't get there. Or probably won't. And one thing we've got to, and I've got to congratulate you guys, being in your comfort zone takes you in the opposite direction from success. Now, I don't see any of you being in a particular comfort zone. But we've got to keep this in the back of our mind, because if you're like me, I'm ambitiously lazy. You know, lazing is nice. But it takes you away from the success you want. So we've got to continually be on the guard against that. That doesn't mean that there should never be periods of rest. There should be. We need that. We can't just be go 7 days a week. We've got to have rest and just time for recovering. But some people recover 6 days of the week and they want to work 1 day. And we'll find that in our teams. We just have to be conscious of that. Now, I'm moving fast. You can pick up on the detail of this later on. The next point is what we must realize for ourselves, and also I'm talking to you as mentors. You've got to go and mentor your downlines. People look at the top and they say, yeah, that's where I want to be. I'm going, and I expect there to be by the next full moon. In no worthwhile enterprise in life does it work like that. There are many steps you've got to take. The fact is people expect too much too soon. And when they don't get all that much soon, they're ready to quit. And we're there to remind them that this is not a short distance race, what do you call it, a sprint. It's a marathon. You can't win a marathon by sprinting. You'll tire yourself and you'll say, well, you know, I've done 200 or 400 or 800 meters and now I'm zonked out. But there's still how many miles or kilometers in a marathon? You understand what I'm saying? So we've got to realize that we've got to teach people to keep taking their steps. If people keep taking their steps, and if we keep taking our steps, now again, I talk to myself, we'll get to the top. But there's no, that's why we always say it's a 2 to 5 year plan. Not a 2 to 5 year plan to necessarily get to the top, but at least to get to a position where you're strong and you know you can get to the top. And whenever we present, we must tell people, listen, what we show you is a 2 to 5 year plan. It's not a 2 to 5 month plan. Because people then think, you know, they can reach the top quickly. And if they try, that's when they start taking shortcuts and doing all sorts of funny things. And they may reach the top and then find they can't sustain that. So I like to show this as a graph where this is your income as it grows. This is time as it goes. And that's quite poetic. Income as it grows, time as it goes. The two things together. So that's what a salary looks like. At least in South Africa, your buying power declines all the time. Right now in South Africa, food prices are going up, fuel prices are going up. If you have a medical aid, you pay more, everything you pay more for. And in most cases, people's incomes, even if they do increase, don't increase enough to keep up with that. So people are getting poorer all along. And then they retire with less money and then they die, normally soon after that. Because there's nothing to live for, there's nothing to live with. So I might as well give up. And you know, people can stay alive through thinking, and they can die through thinking. So what New Life offers us is a graph that has the potential of going up all the time, although with dips. Now, what I've shown here are just mild dips because I couldn't really easily draw big dips. But sometimes they're big dips. I'm thinking of Mokoena in South Africa. They were 5 diamonds. And then in the late 80s, there were violent riots and killings that literally many of the team killed physically. Rough lot there where I come from. So they dropped to 1 ruby. Now, you'd agree with me, from 5 diamond to 1 ruby is a big drop. Most people would drop out because of that. Well, they 5 diamond again. See, that's the attitude we should have, because if we keep on keeping on and teach our people to keep on, we can reach to where, okay, let me show you this way first. I always tell people this first period is where you're not going to earn a lot of money. And what the company is doing with this new incentive is to try and add extra money so that people, even in their first full month, can already start seeing some money. Next month, they see a little bit more. Next month, they see a little bit more. But this is a tough time because people are not seeing a lot. But then the second period, which could be 2 years, 3 years, sometimes it seems outside of South Africa that it's quicker than in South Africa, where people reach a stage where part-time they are earning what they are earning full-time. And that now starts giving you options. Sometimes this is where people will quit their job. In the past, we always used to say, if you get to that stage, save your neo-life income for 6 months without touching it, and then you know you're secure to quit your job. Because if you quit your job too soon, it might put too much financial pressure on one. Now, people's situation differs. I'm just giving a broad outline. But what people miss is going into this third period where this gap now opens up. The longer you're in, the more this gap opens up. And it can take you well beyond where you might have died, going up, up, up all the time. And knowing there's no ceiling. What excites me, purely if I look at it from a financial point of view, is that, our business sort of comes to the top for the year around about November. Last year, November, I got the biggest bonus ever in 40 years in the business. Now, what excites me about, and that is after about 4 years where I haven't been personally building new team for reasons of my own, and some that were forced on me. But I'm starting fresh again now this year because I need to, for my own sake and for leading by example. But this encourages me that I know even where I am now, there's no ceiling. Where could I be, talking personally, 5 years, 10 years from now, financially, compared to where I am now? Why? Because this is the graph, but it's not going to happen here. And as long as we understand it, it's fine, but we need to train our new people because people expect too much too soon, and if they don't get it, they drop out. Okay. Next point. You see what? Sorry, let me just add this. We are not just sponsors. We are mentors, teachers. We've got to teach our people to think right, because if people don't think right about this, it's going to be a problem for them. If they understand this, they won't drop out over here somewhere. But they've got to understand it and believe it, and they won't unless we teach them and encourage them that this is how it is. It's a business. Even if people come into in the corporate world, you start as a teller in the bank. After a year, you're not the branch manager. Might take you years to be there. You might never get there. While here, there's no ceiling. The 80-20 rule, we understand that. We must teach our people and mentor them, because what trips up people is when they talk to 100 people and 80 say no. And if we leave them on their own to do the talking and they find that kind of result, are they going to be encouraged? Are they going to be keen to move on and get the next lot of no's? No. But if you're there, it's like with a small child, when a child is growing up and it falls and hey, it's all right, get up, go. Actually, they don't need that much encouragement. They just fall and get up on their own. But when it comes to something like this, people are so fragile that if they don't have success immediately, they think it's never going to work. My business here in Uganda and in Kenya, which started at the same time in 96. You know how many years it came after we joined? 13 years. And today it's a major part of my business. Now, if I never ever thought of quitting. I just always knew this is where I've got to be for the rest of my life. But not everybody is like that. But my sponsor and his sponsor quit in about a year or so, when we were still doing very little and they had nothing else, nobody else. So they assumed, well, we might as well quit. They've both lost a small fortune Had they just been directors, qualified directors with me, the Sapphire directors, what they could have earned over the last 35, 37 years is a small fortune that they've lost. So we need to coach this and keep encouraging people. If somebody says, no, I say that's exciting, that person wasn't meant for your business. Don't worry, let's look for the next one. Let's just look at the average earning potential in Africa. This is what people are actually earning. To show you what is possible for you to reach up to that, if you're not there. And then to realize what is being done means it's possible. And this is not America, this is not Europe, this is Africa. A director on average earns about 1.8 to 2.5 million shillings. Will be under. Now, if you have a director in your business who's not earning near that, then they could do better. Emerald director about 2.2 to 3.3. If you don't keep up, don't worry, you can get it. SD about 4 million a month. Now, there are SDs who earn a lot less than that. There are SDs who earn more than that. This is an average. A 1 ruby, about 6 million. 2 ruby, about 10 million. And a 3 ruby, about 14 million. No, you know Grace Chege, she's a 2 ruby. She earns more than a 3 ruby. It's possible.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're earning on whatever level you are is far below this, okay, it's not nice to know, but it's good to know that it could be better if you do better. If the leader improves, things can get better, because this is proven. It's not something that we hope will one day happen in Africa. It's currently happening in Africa. There's also unlimited potential in terms of people. I've shown you this in the past, but to remind you, if Kenya had 52 million, which might be more by this time, Uganda 43 million, and Tanzania 57 million, if we could get even just 1% of people of the current population, either as a customer or as a distributor, we would have a total of 1.5 million people involved. And if they average 20 PV, just 20 PV, we'd be looking at 30 million PV a month if we could only reach 1% of the population. So what if the 99 isn't interested? If we could get even just 1 out of 100 to do at least on average 20 PV, which will mean some will do nothing, some will do more. So there's no shortage of people. When I was young in the business, we always thought of saturation. We're going to saturate the market. We could never saturate the market, because this year or last year, there was a whole new group of graduates and people reaching 25. Next year, there's a whole new group of people reaching 25. The year after that, a new group of people reaching 25. And that is, well, in South Africa, at least, the 25 is about where our best hope starts, between 25 and 45. Here, it could be younger. So the potential is there. If we don't tap into that potential, the potential is still there. It's just that we don't tap into it. Now, I want to spend most of our time, you said we could go to 1 o'clock, on building a solid business. Because the graph I showed you over the last 10 years meant people were building a business that looked successful, but wasn't solid. If it was solid, it wouldn't have gone down. So how do we do that? I'm going to give you one sentence, and it's very simple, and it forms the basis of a solid business. And that is to have enough active people. You cannot have a solid business with too few people. I'll show you what I mean. And unfortunately, that's what some people do. And you know, they reach executive manager this month, and they barely made 2,000 points. Now they want to use the fast start to director. Now they need to push to do 2,000 points the next month, but they could barely manage 2,000 over the preceding months. And that causes a problem, because then you become a fake director if you do that. Let's say the average PV per distributor is 100 points. If you look at your organization in your back office, and you see how many zeros there are, and you want to try and calculate, you could do that for yourself. In Uganda, the average is just 23. Now, you should feel good about yourselves, because in Kenya, it's only 16. So of all the people who are currently active or registered distributors, the average PV in Uganda is only 23. But let's suppose it was 100. Now, you see, already we're facing a bit of a challenge. If it were 100, a manager would need at least 5 active people. 5 times 100, 500, plus your own or their own PV. You need a bit of a, what do you call it? You know, a bit more. You don't want just 499 and then you push through another one and you 5. You need a comfortable 500. So say 600. Obviously, then a senior manager would need at least 10 if they were each doing 100 points. Now, we're trying to encourage people to do at least 100 points. In South Africa, the focus is moving to presenting with you and having 5 or 6 customers that would give you, with 3N, that would give you 100 points. Because that's much easier than what we used to do. Pro Vitality, you and 6 customers to give you however many points that would be. 250, something, yeah, 250. You use 1, you sell 6, and you have 250 points. You'd agree that's more difficult with Pro Vitality to do 250 points than to do 100 points with 3N. Now, if we can get new people to do that, use 1, sell even just 5, they've done 100 points. Now, the 5 who bought 3N from them this month, they need to follow up to sell 3N next month again, and they use 1. So they keep doing at least 100 points just on the 3N. You know that in Nigeria, they do 3 million points just on 3N. In Supergrow, they do 2 million. There's a story in that. Because it's easier to sell 1 3N than a jerry can of Supergrow, because for that, you've got to get to the farmers, you've got to fight the shops. That will pass. It's been addressed, not immediately, because many of them still sit with stock that was old price. But let's not talk about that. So getting people to do at least 100 points as a basis and then improve on that, that is already part of having a solid business. Now, see, executive manager 20, a director who has at least a minimum or less than 40 people, provided they each do average of 100, is always going to battle. Let's say you had only 30 people. Now they each have to do, if my math don't count on that, is they probably have to do 150 points. If you only have 20 people, they each have to average 200 points. But people average 23 points. So I believe that as a director, you should have a nursery of at least 80 people who are doing something. 1 month, this one might do nothing, the other one does something. So you get the point of too few people. Now, how to get enough people? Oh yeah, just this one amusing picture. Our business is like a bucket with holes. to bring in people. Some are never going to do anything. Some are going to drop out. Some are, we need to keep filling the bucket because it doesn't stay full. Like where I am, people who joined my team 40 years ago, some of them are dead already. Some of them are old. They're not too active anymore. So somebody said it this way: you can't reach this year's goal with last year's goals with a lot. This year's goals with last year's people. So you are where you are based on the people in your team. You want to step up this year. You need to add new people. I don't think there can be any debate about that. I don't have to try and prove it to you. That's just the fact. So somebody else said you need to build a new team each year. And that's what I have to start doing and have started, although it started slowly. I have to build a new team to go from where I am to the next level. You want to go to the next level? Build a new team. New director with at least 80 active people. 2 directors with at least 80 active people. So you see the volume of people that have got to come in to bring you there. But now I want to show you how to create those volumes, because if that's created just by personal sponsoring, you're never going to make it. Because, as I said already, if you sponsor too many people, it's like a lady with 3, 4, 5 babies. It becomes almost impossible to do the job properly. It gets done because for most people, those babies are precious. But for most distributors, they sponsor 5 or 10 people. Those people they're not really valuable in themselves as a person. They're only valuable in as much as they provide PV. Your thing has gone down, which gives me the opportunity to service my lips.